Hey guys, today I bring you some new works. In this one, we'll follow a guy who managed to have one of the most incredible powers. He simply picks up a card, and from that card, he can summon any type of monster for himself. But how did he awaken this power? Well, we need to go back to the beginning to understand how he got there. Our story begins in the immortal world. In this place, we find the lizard just watching the sunset. Out of nowhere, he starts to notice some people running. These people were running from some wolves that were quite powerful. They were running to survive. At the same time, they were screaming for help. Running, and they kept saying that they were very unlucky. They were still running towards the scorpion from the level 1 area, but why did they block some level 3 desert wolves? She points up ahead and tells him to hold on a little longer. In front, there are some trees. The ghost wolves of the deserts can't be climbing those trees. If they climbed the trees, they could survive. Running, we see her thinking that the wolves of the desert are wild by nature, and once they set their sights on a target, they won't give up easily. In the fight they had against some monsters, they were injured, and the last pieces of metal they had were all damaged. So, they should run, otherwise they would die right here. However, running, the girl who was there ends up tripping and falling to the ground. The two of them then turn back and call out Zewe. However, when she turns back, she has a surprise. The wolves that were there jump towards her. The girl lying on the ground just turns back and ends up seeing the surprise of the wolves opening their mouths in her direction. She ends up simply thinking that her end is over. Until then, a lightning bolt appears out of nowhere and pierces that wolf. Fallen on the ground, we see the sword stuck in the wolf. After a while, that sword is removed. A guy ends up appearing and starts walking towards those wolves. She, fallen on the ground, ends up thanking him and also realizes that he saved him. However, opening her system screen, she realizes that this guy is level 1. The stranger ends up removing his hood, and then he stares at the wolves face to face. The wolves also end up staring at him for a while. Also, level 3 monsters are not that strong. As soon as he says this, the wolves end up running towards him. Our hero holds his sword tightly and then ends up shooting towards the wolves. The wolves also shoot towards him, but with a few quick arrow cuts, our hero ends up cutting each one of them with his sword. The girls who were behind him are simply shocked to see him defeating that thing easily. He stops, while the sunlight hits him. They don't believe it either. He managed to kill some desert wolves with a few blows. However, she asks him to look ahead. Looking ahead, we see other wolves appearing, and it seems that now more wolves have appeared than before. They don't understand. Maybe the wolves that appeared here smelled the blood that was in the desert. The girl who was there, just watching this, realizes that it would be bad to stay here. So she asks the guy who was there to run with her because the monsters were too many. They wouldn't be able to handle it. Our boy, who just listened, turns around and wonders if this was true. However, he ends up taking some cards from the system. The system wonders if Laiwan would like to summon some skeleton warriors. Seeing this, he simply confirms. And at the moment he confirmed the cards that were there, he disappears and appears minutes later on the ground. After that, a gigantic magic circle appears on the ground. And after the magic circle, a skeleton's hand appears. Only then do some skeletons of a very high level appear there. After their appearance, we see the wolves that faced this, but at the same time did not give up. The wolves of the desert then end up running towards our hero's army. Seeing the wolves running towards him, he simply asks him to attack these monsters. His army, then listening, simply advances. As he advanced, our protagonist took advantage of the opportunity that his army gave him to attack the wolves. And we see here that with each cut he made, it was one less wolf that our protagonist had managed to defeat. But time passes. 15 minutes later, he ends up finishing off the last wolf. This one fell to the ground. He then removes his sword that was stuck in it. And below the system appears to us, saying that he killed 16 ghost wolves of the desert. After they were all knocked down, our protagonist picks up grabs some orbs that were inside the wolves. And those orbs go towards our hero's hand. The girls who were there are again in disbelief, not believing that he managed to kill some very powerful wolves of the desert. However, a girl with pink hair approaches him and starts asking something, if he was by chance a wizard, and also if he had used the summoning skill. She ends up saying that she was a wizard too, and she had never heard of that skill. Then he turns around and reveals that at no time did he say he was a wizard. She then wonders what he was. And here he is already introduced to us, that he here has a skill that is forbidden and of level SSS. His name is Lin Yuan, from the Blue Planet. And he is also a reincarnator. 3 years ago, a scientist observed a mysterious giant planet that they called the Magic Planet. It appeared repeatedly next to the Blue Planet. But 3 months ago, a mysterious company announced a virtual reality game called Immortal World. After entering using a virtual reality goggle, which they developed, humans were able to fight against these monsters. And as they leveled up, they basically gained the ability to fight against perhaps more powerful monsters within the game. At first, people didn't care since this was just a game, until one day, some people started to gain powers and abilities in the real world as well, that were obtained within the game. And from that point on, a bunch of cultists, who called themselves believers of the gods of the evil star, then began to enter the real world. From the virtual world, they started hunting some people, and we see the damage being done. Some people were injured. While there, others ran. However, our hero lost his parents in the midst of all this. Humans gathered a power there. With this power, they basically tried to fight against these cultists, but in the end, they were knocked down and defeated by them. In the end, thinking he died, what he least expected, ends up happening. A few hours ago, he was reincarnated in the world of the first time, where the virtual world just happened. This time, the system also gave him the forbidden SSS level class. Now, with this class, this time, he must increase his strength and his ability as quickly as possible to be able to protect the Blue Planet and his family. So he finishes off the last wolf there and approaches it, and after that he ends up placing his hand on top. After he places it, a ghostly aura ends up appearing, not just on one, but on most of these wolves. After that, our system screen appears. He asks if he would like to use the summoning of darkness on the body of wolves. He ends up pressing yes, and the special feature of this class is that it is giving him a warrior's physique. But he still has the ability to summon darkness, transforming the monsters' bodies into zombies so that he can fight other monsters. These mummified monsters basically do not inherit their previous levels and abilities. And this one also obtained a new ability, Body of Death. They are immune to most negative spells, and when his other best talent, the Gate of Hell, he can use it to keep the monsters reincarnated using the type of summoning darkness, and the amount stored increases along with his level. And here we see something emerging from the ground, and that thing that emerged from the ground then opens the doors, and after that, a portal appears. The summoned wolves of our hero then end up walking towards him. Not only him, but also our protagonist. And if his level is high enough, he would obtain the army of relentless immortality. So he advances, but we then return to that girl who ends up asking our hero, and if by chance he was reviving the undead like a zombie. She asks who he could be, but he asks her to look up. The time was almost here. Then the system appears, saying that the world boss was appearing. And this would be the giant wolf of death. Hearing this, our protagonist says that it was the right time for him to be advancing and for him to be able to kill the final boss. However, in another place we find some warriors just staring at the sky turning red. Some lightning ends up falling. Only later we see then, from those lightning bolts, some types of thing appearing. It's like a portal, and from this portal appear some red eyes. The guy who was on the ground says that the giant wolf was appearing and would be heading towards him. Then, he said that he remembers that he saw this on the game's official website, saying that its attack range is 50 meters. They better run, farther, as fast as possible. Everyone then starts running from this monster. We see a huge amount of people running, but it was no use. The speed of that thing was faster. While some of them were caught, we then see two hiding behind a rock, but the giant boss wolf turns to them. As he turns, he ends up devouring some other things there, and at the same time below we show here his level, which was level 6, but one of the guy's brothers ended up being caught. They stop him from going there. After all, it would be crazy to face a monster like that. This was the giant wolf. They are too weak. Facing this monster, he starts to wonder, this is the show. This is the final boss. How could anyone in this world be defeating a monster like that? However, while asking this question, they end up facing a mysterious guy who is walking towards the monster. He is holding a sword, and as we moved a little closer, we realized that this guy was our protagonist. As he advanced, he just stared at the monster seriously. They asked them to look at the sword too. He must be a newbie. Yes, the giant wolf of death is a level 6 boss monster. Without help, no one here would be able to take down a monster like that. But in this world, categorized from weak to strongest, starting with normal and elite, leader and lord, and the king and god monarch. Among them, a lord-class monster, even if it is a level 1 boss, is still a great threat to a newbie like him. As they talk about this, he just stops his steps. The wolf also stops. The two of them then face each other, while the people back there just stare at him. Then he ends up turning to our protagonist and starts to wonder if he was by any chance all, and asks him to get out of there as soon as possible. This guy was a level 6 monster. The monster ends up getting closer and closer, only here it was a little bigger. Looking at him now, he seems to be almost nothing. The monster, with its teeth roaring, and with some red things coming out of its mouth, simply gets angry. Only after a while he takes a puff towards our hero, but in order not to be caught by it, he ends up taking a few steps back, and after he did that, we see him slipping there. And after he slipped, he looks ahead, and as soon as he faces in front of him, he ends up finding the wolf, jumping towards him. But he already had a skill of his own, but after he activated it, he just stood there, since he knew a few things there. He remembered that, in his previous life, there was a giant wolf of death of level 6. Even with his pre-improved level of boss skill, it only has 3,400 HP and 510 attack. For the adventurers inside the deserts, whose level was higher, of level 3, it is definitely a huge challenge to defeat it. At that time, he almost died along with his team, fighting against this monster. But now, he has reincarnated, and he knows everything, and also the countless fights he had against this monster, and almost death, and almost life, and also, he is no longer the same person he was before. The wolf extends his paw towards our hero to catch him, but he sees this and ends up dodging. The wolf hits the ground and ends up tearing the ground completely. Turning back, the wolf also turns towards him, while the hidden guy realizes that this guy was extremely fast, but the wolf also doesn't like this, and then activates an ability, which gives him extra speed. Our hero just smiles, and only after putting his hand on the ground. Placing his hand on the ground, a magic circle appears, and after that, he just asks for it to come. And from the ground, something appears, and that thing simply stops minutes later. Stopping there, nothing happens. The wolf simply stares at it, until out of nowhere then that thing opens, and he asks for whatever was inside to protect him. And from there, some wolves end up coming out. People don't understand what that could be. Those are zombie monsters. But they look more like those wolves from the desert. He reached level 3, killing some wolves on the way here, and the storage capacity of the Gate of Hell increased to 30. And he was still a little behind, but leveling up was worth it, according to the mechanism. Something like, when the summoner is stronger than the summoned monsters, both are present at the same time. So the monsters will target the summoner first, at least the summoned monsters attack first, the boss will not change targets for now. And here we see the boss attacking. He takes down some shadows, but other shadows there don't give up. This one ends up turning red, drawing the boss's attention. The boss then prepares his paw towards this shadow. Our protagonist knew it was the right moment, and also using the aggro mechanism. When the boss starts attacking the summoned monsters, he can use this method to attack first, using it as an easy way to take down a strong monster like this one, and holding his sword he advances and makes some cuts. After the cuts, the wolf ends up roaring in pain. He was injured, so he ends up kind of turning all his attention to our hero. He starts to run because he couldn't stay still, so as not to be caught by this monster. While he ran, he knew that the boss has his aggro and not summoner, which starts by attacking using the summoned monsters and again to be diverting his aggro. But he says that many ants can kill an elephant, even if each of the zombies of the Desert Phantom Wolf only caused 15 damage, and the 3,400 HP of the giant wolf meant nothing, because it would be easily taken down by its shadows. This theory, which he just said a moment ago, ends up becoming reality. With that, some of the monsters end up jumping on top of him. This theory, which he just said a moment ago, ends up becoming reality. With that, some of the monsters end up jumping on top of him and end up biting him, ripping out a part of his life. He starts to roar in pure pain. Meanwhile, facing this monster being knocked down, they start to think that this guy was too amazing, since this monster was a world-class Lord monster. However, one of them starts to laugh out of nowhere. They start to plan some things. Meanwhile, he jumps towards the boys. Since the monster had 500 life, he goes there and advances, and ends up giving the last attack with his sword, giving a final critical hit, ripping out a good part of the life, and reaching the monster's life to 10% to 10 life. He then ends up falling to the ground. The system appears saying that the monster was at its end, and at this moment, while the guy was facing this, he just gets a surprise, because the guys who were hiding end up simply asking him, the controller of the living monster, to simply die first. Our protagonist, who was just facing all this, thought it was too stupid. Even the other guy behind there kept asking them not to do that, but since he wouldn't listen, he just asks them to be careful behind him. They then turn around as quickly as possible, and the moment he turned around, he takes out his sword with a single cut and knocks down the three. With a single blow, the three who were there fall to the ground, while his sword, a red liquid, falls. He then ends up saying that they shouldn't underestimate him. The two behind him wonder what just happened. That was an insta-kill, and it seems that his movements are not only fast, but also powerful. And at this moment, as he was talking about this, the powerful wolf finally gets up. Our hero, who was already angry, simply takes his sword and makes a cut. The monster ends up receiving the blow, and in the end, he ends up being knocked down by him. Then, he wonders what reward this boss will be giving to our protagonist. While he was saying this thing, in front of him, some chests end up appearing. Below appears on his system screen. There he ends up winning the soul gem, the effect, a gem, connected to the power of the soul. After collecting a certain number of them, you can go to the Council of the Eternal to exchange for legendary equipment. After reaching level 60, players need to be going to the Eternal Council, where the elves live, to continue increasing their levels. However, this gem is the easiest way to obtain legendary equipment, and the equipment classification is divided from low to high, starting with void, then black iron, then bronze, silver, gold, black gold, and epic. Then comes legendary, and finally, mythical. Newbie players usually only have void class equipment and rarely get black iron equipment. 2 hours ago, based on his experience from his previous life, he ended up manipulating 2 skeleton warriors to be luring the black sand lizard Ezlight. After defeating him, he ends up winning the black lizard cloak, which gives him a defense of 30 and an agility of 10. But for having managed to kill the first boss of the world, he ended up winning a hunter title. The title is a type of effect. After equipping it, he will be gaining 10% damage and also 10% critical chance. And, also for having managed to kill the first boss of the world, he obtained a silver chest. After he saw this chest, he simply ends up picking it up and opening it and then winning some good rewards. These rewards go to his system. In the end, he notices a great harvest. And also his XP is being calculated so that in the end, he can go from level 3 to level 4. The point he managed to level up there, he ends up getting 5 attribute points. So, for this, he uses 3 points for the mind and 2 points for strength. In the end, after all this, he will know that his attributes are now at the highest level among all the players in the Gravel Desert. Also, although all the zombie ghost wolves have sacrificed themselves in this battle, after he leveled up, the gate to the underworld is now large enough to accommodate 40 zombies. So, he approaches the monster he just defeated. The system wonders if he wants to tame this animal for himself. The guy simply agrees, and the moment he agrees, he opens his eyes. And, as soon as he opens his eyes, he stands in front of our protagonist. Below, we are shown that this monster was level 6, with HP of 2,400, an attack power of 360. And, as expected, the boss has a gigantic skill and strength. Looking back now, he also realizes that this zombie, in addition to the undead body, has another skill, the undead wrath. And with the help of this giant wolf, he may be quickly replenishing the zombies at the gate of the underworld. However, the guy behind him doesn't believe it. Did he really turn the boss of this world into a zombie? And is that door also part of his ability? That's incredible. Others realize that this person was much scarier than the final monster. Our hero, hearing this, turns his eyes back, and the guys who were there simply hide out of sheer fear. He doesn't understand why they were there all this time, but it seems that after the 3 bandits were killed earlier, they realized that behind there dropped a very good item. This is a black iron sword, which is a very good weapon. For low-level beginner players, it is very good. However, he already has a much better sword than this one. To do this, he grabs the sword that the guys were looking at and only then goes towards them. They don't understand why they're coming towards him. Maybe they came to do the same thing they did to those 3 over there. There was still time, and it's very likely that if they ran through here, they would survive. But our hero approaches very quickly and ends up saying that it was the same person who was shouting just now, right? He didn't want to be revealed, so he ends up making up some excuses. However, our hero simply hands him the sword. Looking at this, they simply don't believe anything. They just thank him and then say that this sword would perhaps be useful to him. They don't believe him again because they gave him a very powerful sword. And this sword was very good. Others even end up looking at this sword and recognize it as that black iron sword over there. However, 10 minutes later, he ends up walking through this desert. However, he starts to feel something, and a shock wave ends up appearing in the darkness. After that, we see our protagonist in the real world. He ends up picking up the virtual reality helmet, and then ends up removing it. And in the end, he realized that the battery in the helmet didn't last long. After removing it, he thinks that he should quickly earn money to buy a game pod. However, here we are shown something. Hyper-realistic holographic game is divided into multiple login areas based on the country. In addition, each login area also contains different game kingdoms for players to choose from. Among these is the El Padi district, where our hero lives. As an example, there are other countries. This is the country of the ancient Western Desert. There is also the Southern Empire, the Northern Hans Empire, and the Mare Island. Our hero receives the message from the system, asking him to choose the place where he could be reborn. Here there were some choices, but living his life again, he made the same choice as in his previous life. This is the Western Desert because before he could die, he discovered a certain secret. There we found some monsters invading some cities. And in this place there was a person, our protagonist, who was caught by this monster, falling to the ground and thinking that his end had come. Until then, a person appeared. At this moment, this thing that was coming from the sky was floating there in the air. Our protagonist opens his eyes and only then sees these things flying from the sky, coming from the direction of that giant eye back there. In the end, he realizes that perhaps this is a yellow seraph, and that this is the emblem, a guild of the ancient kingdom of the Western Desert. The first demonic sovereign in the star was actually a human player. He remembers that the first follower was a key figure in the final summoning, so that the evil sovereigns could come to the real world. He still has 3 years since the descent of the evil sovereign. If he can eliminate him during this period, maybe he can prevent this whole tragedy. But the only clue he has about this guy is to receive an emblem. Only the guild of the main city in the Western Desert. It seems that they love their luggage like yellow seraphs, and the condition to enter the main city is to reach level 10. And if he, our protagonist, wants to explore the true intensity of this rat, he must basically hurry up and increase his level much faster than he should think, already knowing that everything he has to do is already done, so our protagonist just stares down there. He ends up taking one of those cards from his system inside the game. With that now in hand, he is already surprised to see that he actually managed to summon a skeleton card in real life. Some players, and the Eternal World, as soon as they enter, the game may be bringing some powers from the game to the real world, so that he can be using them. These people are called the Chosen Ones. The Chosen, also known as the Children of Destiny. Each Chosen possesses a powerful hidden profession and an extremely high luck value, and they are the main force fighting against the evil sovereign later. In his previous life, he only obtained the skills of his game character, in reality when all that destruction came to the real world. But this time, it happened too early. But it seems that his Forbidden Soul Reaper skills are really not uncommon, and he just doesn't know very well how to differentiate between that among those who have hidden professions. However, he ends up hearing a noise behind the door. So then, he ends up following that direction, and only then, he ends up approaching the door. And knowing that it was the moment, but he wonders what that meant. He ignores them and asks them to eat it, however they don't understand, but understands that this was a very rare gesture of Yuan. So only they could be appreciating and eating, but a common human characteristic is that only after loss do you realize the true meaning of value. And this meant a way to make up for what was lost in his previous life. He had always lived in ignorance, locked in his room all day. His parents realized that if this kid continued to play these games and get addicted to them, he would completely destroy himself. However, because he said this, they realized that he shouldn't comment, since this kid would get angry over little things. However, when the disaster came and took everything away, he really realized how stupid and foolish he was for basically wasting his time on games. And it seems that today was Sunday, and it seems that little Tan hadn't come home to eat. Tan said that she had to prepare for a mock exam recently, an exam that had just started, and she had brought her food to eat at school itself. However, she didn't expect that Yuan had actually learned how to cook. These chicken wings looked too delicious. She continued to eat them, and he revealed that they were all his, and besides, he had kinda learned how to cook in the future. The two of them, then looking at this, realized that maybe he's gone crazy. The boy's mother ends up rubbing her eyes. They then understand, but our scene cuts to outside. Our hero started training a little, started doing some moves. Since if he wants to improve the control and power that the game brings to reality in the future, he must have a strong enough physical constitution to withstand all that. After training a few punches there, our protagonist started to run a little, and after he ran a little, he finally stops. After he stops, we see him standing there just staring at his watch. And there he ran 50 meters in 5 milliseconds. For him, it wasn't bad at all. But still, he might be getting better and better at it. Now that it's over, it's time to go back. Our scene cuts to a dimension. Some blue clouds then appear. The system will congratulate our hero for coming back. However, we find some mysterious scenes. Here we find a shadow passing by our hero. It passes by at extreme speed. At this moment, when he sees this action passing by, he turns around. And as soon as he turns around, he finds some giant birds. And these giant birds, guess what? came running towards our protagonist. These birds were level 2, and they opened their mouths with their sharp teeth to catch him. However, with a few quick cuts there, he manages to take down these birds with gigantic ease. After taking them down, he gets some extra points. He is happy with this, but looking at it now, he realizes a few things. Since right there in the distance, there were some things catching his attention. Below, we see a wolf's paw, and after this wolf here, we find some other wolves, but in a whole herd. It seems that these monsters easily managed to attract so many wolves. It is no wonder that one of the favorite preys of the ghost wolf of the desert was these animals. However, now he can use this to his advantage. He grabs a portion, and as soon as he grabs that portion, he ends up taking it, since now this was a very good opportunity for him to be collecting these wolves for himself. The wolves advance towards some things, and our hero also advances towards them. With his sword, he cuts some of them, wolves. So, he easily knocked them down, but there were still others jumping towards him, with the aim of catching our protagonist. But seeing this, he takes his sword and ends up cutting them. And at the moment he cuts these wolves, he pauses to breathe a little, but the wolves don't give him this pause. They then end up stopping in front of him. We see the minutes after our protagonist was surrounded side by side by these monsters. It seems that they came, so time is up. To do this, our protagonist closes his eyes, and only then, with that, he advances towards the wolves, cutting them one by one. And after cutting them one by one, we see our protagonist in a brilliant scene, holding his sword. After cutting down maybe 40 wolves, the system appears congratulating our protagonist for having taken down 40 wolves. And because of that, he ended up managing to level up to level 5. In front of him, that thing from his system appears. And with that, he manages to make those wolves that he just knocked down enter that thing that just appeared in front of him. After the battle, the gate to the underworld was full of undead monsters again. And here we are shown our hero's system. Here it shows his attributes. Now he is level 5. His strength is quite powerful, but after his 4 main attributes increased by drinking that monster essence, his combat power should now be enough to fight some elite monsters. And now it was the right time to look for that certain person. He advances towards a city in the desert, while some dust appeared there in that city, but his goal was to enter inside. And there at the top of the city of Black Sand, we found the city in good shape and found some people walking through it. Among these people, our protagonist was also walking, but his goal was not to walk through these people per se, to follow them to a certain cabin, and he ends up arriving at this certain cabin. And as soon as he arrives at the cabin, he ends up picking up and opening the door. And the moment he opens the door, he ends up finding a certain guy. He then wonders, who could this guy be who came to disturb his peace? And here he is introduced to us as Kosh, a wizard instructor in the city of Black Sand. For this, he ends up calling Kosh instructor. He just came here to learn some skills from him. He then just sits there while staring at our protagonist. But our hero starts to explain some things. However, in the game, in the world of immortality, skills are usually acquired from skill books, which are obtained by defeating monsters in treasure chests. And it seems that this guy here was lucky. He managed to defeat this monster, and in the chest he picked up, he found a book that must be of a high rarity. And besides, each profession has its own novice instructor, who is responsible for teaching him. And this was the instructor when he ended up becoming a novice mage in his previous life, and his name was Kosh. If you teach him this, you will be giving him drinks. You will be giving him money so that he can buy drinks for the next 15 days. He was a mage in his previous life, so he knows a lot of information about the Soul Reaper skills in this life. However, he can also consider it a skill that depends on magic in terms of his fighting style. But still, he needs to learn the general skills of a mage common to the fighting style of a Soul Reaper combat, before he can be obtaining his special skills, and for that, he wants to learn the skill of Spiritual Flame. the art of healing and also the art of concealment. While he was saying these things, he was holding a bag of money in his hand, and while he was doing that, we see him pointing it towards the guy. He takes this bag of money. Then he says that by giving him money, he will be teaching our protagonist what to desire. Then he asks him to do his best, because the glory of the magicians is shining upon our protagonist. After saying such a thing, he ends up extending his hand towards our hero. Then, the system appears congratulating our protagonist for obtaining 3 mage skills. The first one was the level 1 Black Iron Spiritual Flame. The effect is to inflict damage to the target equal to 100% of the spell's damage. The other one was the Healing Art. The effect is to apply healing power to the target, restoring 10% of their HP. Our last one was the level 1 Concealment Art. The effect is to enter a concealment state that only lasts for 5 seconds. After seeing this, he realizes that the spiritual flame includes ranged attack power, and the healing art can be healing him and his teammates. As for the concealment art, it can be used to save his life in very critical moments. But the skills are very simple. If he wants to learn the higher level skill, he will have to find a way to obtain more resources. So, he said that it was okay. He just needs to continue on his path of leveling up. As he says this, we see him just staring at his system screen. Meanwhile, in the Black Sand City, we see the system congratulating our protagonist for having reached Kobold. This is quite a peculiar territory. Only here we only see our hero walking towards a cave. He then explains that kobolds are monsters of around level 5, and they live in nearby dens and caves. They can also find people in the dark due to their large eyes and very sharp sense of smell, and they can be ambushing you too. That's dangerous. And worst of all, their numbers. The individuals in their group usually vary around hundreds or thousands. So, whether in terms of numbers or level, kobolds are currently the most suitable monsters for leveling up, using their method of their undead army. So, he uses a portion of night vision. To do this, he will use the Kobold to maximize his proficiency in the concealment skills and the spiritual flame. And with this, he will finally be able to open some chests while using his shadow for such a thing. To do this, he summons those shadows of his. He also uses a torch that gives him greater illumination. With his army of wolves, we see him advancing further and further into this cave. The wolves go ahead because he can't risk too much. So we see him advancing. As he advanced, he just walked along. Up until then, our protagonist advanced to a certain point and realized that these movements were very similar. And to do this, he takes the torch he was holding in his hand and shoots it in the direction of a dark place in the background. And after shooting it, we see that that torch managed to shine and some things came down there. And we see that down there we find some of the kobolds, and they were devouring something. But their eyes end up turning towards our hero's group. The shadows of our protagonist who was ahead were all caught by this group of kobolds. But the worst of all is that one of these kobolds was level 5 with 120 HP and his attack power was 30. And it seems that the kobold mining that he needed so much from the beginning finally appeared for him. And one of these kobolds that knew the saw opens its mouth and starts to roar a little. But we see that torch that our hero threw there before, it fell to the ground. And the moment it fell to the ground, we then see our protagonist advancing. As he advanced, he asks his shadows to protect him, while he takes care of the slightly weaker kobolds. However, one of these weaker kobolds advances towards him, while one holds a pickaxe and the other advances with his wire grip. But our hero, who was already used to fighting monsters like this, advances towards him. And a few cuts are enough to take down one of these monsters. But it still wasn't enough. He activates another ability that gives him much greater strength. And with that, he advances towards the monsters, but the monsters advance towards him, needing to defend themselves. But he knew he would get out of this easily. So, with his dark, they cut these monsters. And he realizes that the combat power of these channels is great for, most importantly, now it's time to dodge his piece. And these monsters seem to have come all towards him, but using his ability to hide, we see him disappearing. That pickaxe that was going to hit him ends up simply not hitting him and instead hits the ground, sinking into the ground. And it seems that he fell for their tricks. And with that now, appearing behind this kobold, he ended up grabbing his sword. With that, he ends up making cuts to the side, grabbing the monster, not only this one, but also his companion who was knocked down. After he knocked down these two kobolds, he stops there on top of one of the rocks, and here he is facing the monsters. The system appears showing the level 1 art of disappearance. His experience in the art of disappearance seems to have increased a little more, but the attributes of these common kobolds are still much weaker. So, by defeating a monster like this to level up, he was getting slower and slower. To do this, he ends up summoning some undead kobolds to his system, and after that, his screen shows that they are level 5, that they have an attack force of 30, which was actually quite strong. Now, at this point, he has some kobolds as his own army. We then see him extending his hand. He then says that from now on, he will replace the undead ghost wolves he has. So, he asks them to advance. For now, he must hurry and look for the leader of these monsters he is facing, but then, after saying something like that, his kobold there, about 3 of them advance. While behind him, our protagonist was there as a rear guard. He advances while taking a few steps. Until then, he enters a certain place and realizes that this territory was practically their territory. After stopping for a bit, he starts to stare at some things there, and those things were on the wall. It seems that, finally, he managed to find what he wanted so much. At the moment he says this, he ends up forming a fire in his hand. After forming that, he shoots towards the wall, hitting some little things. These were some slimes, and the moment he knocked down those slimes, some red eyes appear there in the middle of the darkness in that cave, and those eyes end up having a gigantic pressure. At that moment, something approaches him too quickly. That thing was the boy from this place, holding a type of bone whip. He starts to crack it, but the system appears saying that this was the kobold, elite level, level 6, who had an attack power of 100. And this monster's life was 350. Now that this has appeared, he starts to talk about some things from ancient times. The weak have been prey to, let us say, strong monsters, but this is already an immutable law of survival in the natural world, and the predator is always destined to be the prey in the end of the story. And here we find a ferocious wolf devouring a small bird. But behind this ferocious wolf devouring the bird, there appears a serpent, and at this moment when this snake saw this wolf flying around here, it simply crawls slowly. But the moment it saw the monster, it ends up opening its mouth and goes towards the wolf. And that's why the danger is absolute, lurking around every corner and at every moment. And at all times you have to be alert, otherwise you will most likely become prey for a powerful monster. And at the moment he says something like that, we return to our reality, and we find that cowboy boss here, who ends up grabbing his skeleton whip and shoots towards those clones of our protagonist, and also our protagonist to be hitting him directly. But we see that, let's say, nothing happened to him, because all we see here is a gigantic dust appearing there. But, well, while it is very likely that our protagonist was caught by this, our little story continues from the last part where it left off. There we find the smoke rising up ahead. We find our protagonist, commenting that even sometimes hunters can be challenging themselves, just as prey can sneak in, finding their opponent, because at this moment, the wolf itself ended up flying towards the snake and ended up biting its neck. And it's exactly like this moment. That bone whip that was heading towards him, our hero grabs it with just his hand, and only after he did that, he comments that he finally caught it, and pulling it back, he threw it backwards with it. Not only was it enough to throw it back, but it also managed to push it back for quite a while, and it even crashed into some rocks, and this irritated him a little. He got up as quickly as possible to make a counterattack, but our hero ended up moving faster than it. A flash of something dark passes by our brute, while he turns to the side to see what it was, but he doesn't have time to react. Our hero, with his high speed, ends up using his ability, which makes 2 cuts right on this brute. The 2 cuts are enough to make the brute immediately fall to his knees on the ground. Now on the ground, knocked down and perhaps defeated, he starts to hear some noises coming from the back. With his eyes reddened, he turns around. As soon as he turns around, he finds several kobolds, with some pickaxes and weapons walking towards our hero. For now, our hero just stares at the brute, while watching from behind those brutes ordering their kobolds to attack his opponent. At the same time, the system appears to us saying that the threat here was a little more dangerous than before, and here the number of kobolds has increased significantly. The number for him was quite large, but his followers are almost the same as what he has. And to top it all off, he even says that his animals are more powerful than theirs, since they were supposed to be fighting monster after monster, so he asks his animals to go out and get some fresh air. So they go out, and we find that gigantic wolf from before, appearing in front of the kobolds. And there in front, we find our hero and also the remains of the small wolves that were advancing towards the kobolds. And since it was a hunt, he asks them to officially start hunting against these monsters. They extend their hand, and as soon as they do so, the wolf ends up roaring. After roaring a little, they advance towards the kobolds. The kobolds also advance towards the wolves, and a fight begins. The wolves end up receiving a few blows, and seeing that they were at a disadvantage, the strongest wolf of our protagonists ends up roaring, causing the kobolds that were there to lose their concentration a little. That brute that was behind also ended up receiving the effect of our big wolf's ability, and at that moment that this happens to this brute, we even see our protagonist duck extremely happy, but he asks for it to end quickly and kill all the monsters. Our little wolves advance towards the remains of the kobolds, and so a system screen noise appears for us, saying that he overcame some certain level 5 kobolds there, and managed to take down 5, not 5, yes, 20. After 20 it was 40, and after that, he ended up finally reaching level 6. While leveling up, at one point, a greenish light flies towards him. Our protagonist was there on top of some kobolds. At the same time, they reach out to the ground. And by doing this, he ends up activating his necromancer ability. The kobolds that were on the ground end up emerging now as the shadow of our protagonist. Even the brutes were summoned as his shadow. Seeing that the kobold army was completely knocked down, the weakest kobolds that were still alive still tried to escape. But our hero, who saw this, asks them not to escape, because they will also be part of his army. So he advances, and with a few cuts, he manages to knock down these 2 kobolds. And at the moment he does this, he thinks about stopping for a bit, but a torch quickly flies towards him, and this scares him. To do this, he ends up moving back. But when he moved his sledgehammer back, it ended up hitting the spot where he was. And here we find the warrior kobold. This was the kobold boys, who was level 7, HP 1000, with an attack power of 150. This boss kobold that just appeared then most likely prepares to attack our hero, who was there dodging his attack, ends up moving back a little, but then comments that he had been waiting for him for a long time. Their fight there most likely will be more than worthy, because then we see the kobold boys using the sledgehammer that he had in his hand to hit our hero, but what he finally hits were some rolling rocks, ending up causing an explosion. But the sledgehammer he gave was a little too strong, causing the sledgehammer he was using to get stuck in that thing. Well, he tried to get it out with his strength, but we see that below nothing happened. He applied force. Our protagonist saw that he had made the mistake of attaching his sledgehammer to the wall. He saw that he could now be using this to his advantage. With his sword in hand, he then thought that now might be the right time to attack. He prepared and went towards him. The kobold, who until now had been having difficulty removing his sledgehammer from the wall, he ends up succeeding, and not only that, but he also manages to defend himself from the cut our protagonist threw in his direction. However, we still see that cut managed to make a small cut in those bandages he had there as protection. Because of that, he ends up advancing in his direction. But advancing backwards, he comments that it was as expected from a boss like that. Even using his sword skill and his best attack, he didn't even manage to penetrate his skin. But knowing that he couldn't stay here still, he ends up dodging, and at the moment he does this kobold boss ends up using his sledgehammer to hit our hero in that spot, causing an explosion again. Our hero once again just watches, because he knew it would be almost the same as the other attack. But at that moment, something quickly approaches his face, and what approached was his sledgehammer. Our protagonist barely had time to dodge or defend himself from this attack, because the boy's attack simply stopped right in front of his face. With that, our hero had only one thing to do: jump back, and again he jumps back, dodging the attack of this boss kobold at the last second. The boss's attack simply hits the ground completely, tearing up a good part of it. Our hero used his foot to make that stop for us. Standing still now, he notices the boss's attack pattern. He saw that it was nothing so simple, not even for an elite monster like him. Based on the strength he is demonstrating right now, he is at least 2 or 3 times stronger than an elite monster. First, he will have to keep a distance between himself and this monster, while at the same time ensuring that he continues to cause a little damage to these boys while dodging any attack that these boys will be making in his direction. To do this, he ends up putting that ghostly hour in his hand. As soon as he does this, he sends an air gas. And as soon as he does this, we find those summons of our hero that emerged from his shadows and thus surrounded this kobold boys. And at this moment, we see that everyone was focused on just one goal: to take down the boys, because we also see that he even takes down our protagonist's strongest wolf, with the same goal. And so with the goal in mind, our wolf prepares himself. Then he ends up taking a run at the boys. The surrounded boy then activates his ability and the final blow. When striking anything, be it a monster, be it a person, it will do double or triple the original damage. And here we see him spinning with his pickaxe, at the same time preparing an attack to be delivered to our wolf. Our protagonist, who saw this and realized that he could not let this attack hit him, he extends his hand and asks the other wolves around to attack. And so it is done. We see the weaker wolves jumping towards the kobold boys. So giving our wolf a little more time to prepare, so our wolf ends up activating one of his abilities as well. This was the group's ability, inherited from the undead. It activates a 10% attack power with a 20% critical hit chance. When doing so, this ability activates. We then see the weaker wolves that were previously weak becoming stronger, thus giving a little more damage to the boss kobold. We also know that perhaps this alone would not be enough to knock down or reduce the boy's health, so our big wolf prepares a lightning ability. He shoots towards our boss kobold, who takes all the damage, causing 150 damage to him. Receiving this damage, he ends up screaming. After a while, we see the dust dissipating. At the same time, we see the wolves still clinging to him. In front, we find our protagonist approaching. Then he activates his other ability, the magic of the spiritual flame. A green flame, appears in the palm of his hand. After it appears in the palm of his hand, we see him firing those flames that he just formed in his hand several times towards the boys. The boys simply see these flames coming close to him, just stands there and watches. Because below we find that blow hitting him, and although he remembers, the kobold boss's magic resistance is very low, and then we see the fire hitting him, causing 20, 30, and 30 damage, but these small damages end up causing him more and more pain. He screams there, while below we find the kobold a little exhausted. But even so, he does not give up, because he still wants to catch our protagonist, then roars in the direction of our hero. We see him crouching down and starts running at extreme speed, still holding that sledgehammer of his. Our hero, who sees him running towards him, does nothing either, because our hero realizes that there is no need to do anything. He just uses that other ability of his. This was the ability to become invisible, and so he starts to disappear. The kobold, who was there with his objective of catching our hero, simply has the surprise of seeing that they disappeared, but he appears seconds later behind himself. Behind him, he thanks him for insisting on coming to our hero. Since he came, He will have no mercy on him. Back now, he realizes that right behind him, there was a fleshy area, and it wasn't armor, meaning he can attack here with everything he has. The boy who could dodge to the side doesn't do anything, so our protagonist quickly advances with his sword. He stabs the boy in the weakest point, and we see red liquids appearing there. At the same time, we see him resisting not being caught by the sword, but we see that it's no use, because blood and damage end up being caused to him. Once again, the boy screams in pain, but he hasn't been knocked down yet. He ends up freeing himself. Our hero jumps up. Then he tries to hit our protagonist, but our hero still sees that he could do something to defend himself, so he calls for one of his shadows to come to him. As soon as he snapped his finger, we see the paw of our hero's wolf running. He grabs one. He grabs the wolf's fur to keep from falling. Then we just find our protagonist on top of the wolf now, so he ends up stopping there at the back, while the weaker wolves start to pass by his strong wolf. They then start to surround our kobold again. Our kobold then finds himself surrounded again and defenseless against the attacks of the wolves that will be made in his direction, but for the kobold boys it wouldn't happen. With his pickaxe then, he starts to make some movements to the side, and in doing so, he manages to knock down some of the wolves. Our hero, while seeing this, realized that his armor had already been transported, so this means that the next blow, he forms those fireballs in the palm of his hand again, and with that, he makes those fireballs formed in his hand start to go out in a circle towards our kobold. Since with this, finally ability that he can be using, he can finally be sending our boss kobold here to perhaps another world. And we see that those fireballs hit that kobold full on, and we then see 30, 40, and 40 damage appearing on him. However, in the middle of all this chaos, we find our kobolds there taking all the damage, and we only see some green fire emerging there, very large. But in the middle of this, we find our kobold roaring upwards. Our historian begins inside the dungeon. A horde of humanoid wolves wielding pickaxes rushes forward, their eyes glowing red. The hooded figure observes the approaching monsters, commenting, "It is just a struggle." A notification appears, confirming the extermination of 10 kobold overseers and 20 miners. The notification continues, displaying a total of 35 kobold miners killed. One of the kobold miners swings its pickaxe downwards with the intent to strike. The kobold's foot nearly crushes the hooded figure as it tries to attack. The figure stands ready, asking if the kobold is trying to escape, as green energy surrounds him. The figure grips his sword, stating that the kobold must leave its life behind first. The cloaked individual leaps into the air to strike, as the kobold prepares to defend. The kobold chieftain roars as it falls backwards. The figure stands over the fallen kobold, and a notification displays he has killed the kobold chieftain. The figure sees a notification. It shows he has successfully killed the kobold chieftain and earned experience. The system congratulates him as he leveled up to level 7. The figure notes he is now level 7, and the system displays his stats. He thinks that with this kill, he is one step closer to level 10, so he can go to the main city. The system shows that his stealth technique and spirit flame have leveled up, and their effect has doubled. The figure glances to the side. A bronze treasure chest appears before him. The figure's hand reaches out to open it. He opens the chest, revealing its contents. The system shows he has obtained a kobold leather pouch, unquenchable torch, skull mask, and shadow gloves. The system notifies him he has obtained 20 gold coins from the kobold leather pouch. He remembers that soon major banks around the world will open channels for currency exchange between reality and the game world. 20 gold coins are equivalent to 0,000 yuan. The system displays the stats for the unquenchable torch and skull mask. He looks at the shadow gloves. The system shows the stats for the shadow gloves. The figure says his luck is good and he got a silver-grade weapon from a bronze treasure chest, and he is excited to try them. The scene shows a forest near the Kobold Cave. The Bloodscar Guild leader thinks the recent training is good and they eliminated 30 Phantom Desert Wolves. in less than a minute. The Bloodscar Guild vice leader says nothing will be impossible for them as long as the two brothers unite. One of the guild members says that the leader and vice leader eliminated so many phantom wolves at once. Another member says they will wipe the Thunder Guild out. The vice leader is upset that Lin Yuan got the first kill of the world boss. A notification that says the world boss has been killed by player Lin Yuan appears as everyone looks in shock. The giant wolf is defeated as the figure stands above it. The leader says that he doesn't know what ridiculous luck that scoundrel had. He tells Fei Ho not to act recklessly. The leader says that Lin Yuan is tyrannical and his strength is not to be underestimated, so it is better to win him over. The leader remembers that there is a kobold dungeon nearby, and he will check its location. The other member says, "Your orders?" The vice leader feels wronged, as his elder brother has already scolded him 3 times. The vice leader says that Lin Yuan should just wait and that the day will come when he'll pull out his fangs. One of the members tells the vice leader not to get angry and asks him to look at what he has. The vice leader asks what it is. The vice leader is seen in the forest. He sees someone in the distance. A woman in a witch outfit appears. The vice leader and 2 other men laugh. The figure walks towards the trees. The system displays the undead kobold chieftain's statistics. He believes he has added a chieftain-ranked undead with considerable combat power to his collection. The witch tells them not to come any closer, or she will not spare them. The vice chieftain is happy to have met such a stunningly beautiful girl today. He tells the witch not to worry, and that she will only entertain them for a while instead of suffering. One of his companions says that all she needs to do is please the vice chieftain until he overflows with joy. The witch says that if they come any closer, she will not hesitate to attack. The witch tries to attack, but the vice chieftain kicks her. The vice leader thinks she is just a trivial wizard and asks her if she thinks she can harm them. The vice leader immobilizes her. He tells her that he has had enough of this nonsense, and if she has not given up yet, then she can try again if she can. He tells her to keep going, to keep trying. He adds that the more she resists, the more excited he becomes. The witch screams. An iron gauntlet is shown. He is hit by an explosion and thrown back. The companions of the vice captain yell his name. The gauntlet blasts at something. The vice captain lies on the ground injured. The figure says the effect isn't bad, and it was easier than he imagined. One of the companions knows he must find a way to inform the captain. The witch asks who he is, as one of the Bloodfilth Guild members says she has angered the guild. The figure is shown. Someone explains the Bloodfilth Guild was the #1 guild in the Black Sand Town's newbie village. It is added that most of the guild's members are red-named players who love to commit evil. A red-named player with a scythe is shown. Then the text explains they are dangerous players classified by the system. The text explains that criminal acts such as attacks, theft, and looting lead to a danger status. He believes that losing equipment and low levels causes severe losses to players. Our protagonist asks if they are all from the Bloodfilth Guild and thinks that these rats caused him immense trouble in his past life. One of the Bloodfilth Guild members wonders who they are dealing with. A Bloodfilth Guild member proclaims they are the #1 guild as the hooded figure stands above them. A member of the Bloodfilth Guild tells someone that if they don't want a miserable death, the member says to cut off their arms and kneel like a dog and call him Grandpa. The hooded figure attacks. The arms get cut off. The Bloodfilth Guild member screams. The figure states he will take care of severing their arms and save their dog-like barking for hell. The witch looks surprised by his strength. A person runs through the woods. He consumes a health potion that restores 0% of his HP and magic power. The injured vice captain swears at the figure. A figure tells him his fate is certain doom. One of the guild members says the guildmaster is over there. The figure and the witch look on. Someone notices that this is the kid who almost killed the vice master. Someone says, "Wait," as they prepare to attack and focus on his cold eyes. The description notes that the sword looks like it can cut through anything. Our hero exudes an unbearable suffocation. Someone tells the guild master to hurry up and show this kid the power of the guild. The member thinks that this aura, along with the sword, probably dropped from a boss-level monster, and that this person is Lin Yuan. The leader thinks that the members who provoked the figure are idiots. The figure asks if he is the leader of the Blood Filth Guild. The leader of the Blood Filth Guild says that dignity cannot be compromised. He thinks that today's battle is inevitable. The leader of the Blood Filth Guild attacks. The witch yells for everyone to be careful behind him. The vice captain yells, "Die, you scoundrel!" as he charges forward to attack. With a furious expression, the villain brandishes his sword and screams, ready to strike down his enemy. His face is contorted with rage as he prepares to deliver the fatal blow. His companion steps forward, brandishing his axe, as he declares that the other's decision was foolish. A wide shot shows figures falling to the ground in a chaotic scene. The man wielding the axe looks up in shock. A wolf-like figure stands menacingly beside a young man in a dark cloak. The creature smashes through a barrier with its massive weapon, its sharp teeth bared. The man wielding the sword quickly descends, ready to strike. A man is stunned as he witnesses an attack. He claims that it is his opponent's turn. The man screams, his eyes wide with disbelief. The hero faces his opponent, their weapons locked in a fierce struggle. The axe wielder lies defeated on the ground as the hero stands triumphantly over him. The hero declares that the guild is no longer worthy of being taken seriously. A notification alerts him that his sin value has increased after killing a human player. The scene changes to a close-up of the hero, with a thoughtful expression as he ponders his next move. He says that the sin points should disappear in a week if he doesn't accumulate more. The witch notices figures running away and wonders if they should chase them. Our protagonist claims that they are just small insects and not worth the trouble. The hero stands over the body of his defeated enemy. The attributes of the explosive battle axe are displayed. The attributes of the crossed dragon fang blade are displayed. The attributes of the thorn dagger are displayed. He thinks that the weapon's properties are good and that he can sell it. He walks somewhere in purple boots. The girl expresses her gratitude to the hero for saving her. The hero mentions that he doesn't know her name yet. The girl and the hero are standing next to each other. The hero says that one day he will see his name at the top of the list of the 10 most famous people in the world. The girl looks at him and repeats what he just said. The witch questions the importance of the list and asks the hero to take it with him. The scene shows a vast desert. The hero stands before a giant scorpion. The attributes of the howling thunder scorpion are displayed. The hero prepares to fight with his dagger in hand. The scorpion is struck by a blue energy. The hero is surrounded by several scorpions. One of the scorpions is seriously injured by the light. The hero watches intently. He is surrounded by light and scorpions in a vortex. He has defeated 0 howling thunder scorpions and has leveled up to level. He reflects that he has reached level 8, but that collecting the paralysis herb was annoying. The scene changes to 2 days ago. An old man in a coat says they finally met. A mission from alchemist Emor has been detected. The details of the quest named Emor's Will are shown. He thinks that after a period of time, a special dungeon will open in the main city. The dungeon is packed with monsters with thunder properties, and to clear it, one must have resistance to thunder. The demand for effective thunder resistance potions will reach thousands of gold coins. He remembers in his past life, someone made a huge fortune because of this. He will get the recipe for the effective thunder resistance potion after he finishes gathering paralysis herbs. The man named Emor arrives in Blacksand Town and will retire forever after this quest. He confirms that he accepts the quest. A level monster that guards the paralysis herb is shown. The hero comments that the scorpions do not pose a threat to him. He successfully snatched the quest and will use this to max his newly learned gathering skill. Details about the gathering skill are shown. A hand is surrounded by herbs and light. He says, "Let's go a little deeper." He is walking deeper. He prepares to attack. The giant scorpion swoops down. The giant scorpion's stinger approaches. The protagonist uses a silver slashing strike. The hero dodges. Now, He is ready to fight. A mutant monster, the Crystal Thunder Demon Scorpion, has appeared. The hero wonders if a mutant demon monster has appeared. The attributes of the Crystal Thunder Demon Scorpion are displayed. The hero thinks, even though the situation is difficult now, he will sharpen the blade of his silver slash for the first time. The hero attacks the scorpion. A close-up of the blade is shown. He notices that the scorpion's armor leaves no gaps for penetration. The boss is activating the Thunder Paralyzing Attack skill. The boss is activating the Poison Needle Stabbing skill. The Crystal Scorpion gains powers, with lightning crackling around it. The hero prepares to dodge the scorpion's attack. He realizes that the scorpion's strength is beyond what he expected and needs to dodge its combat power first. The scorpion prepares to attack. He remembers what someone told him. To do this, he summons some kobolds. Our story continues in the same place. The wolf-like minion delivers a heavy blow, crackling with energy as it hits the giant insectoid monster. Watching from the side, the hooded hero wonders why the double damage ability wasn't activated on that attack. Suddenly, a system notification warns that the boss is about to unleash his ability, Earth-Shattering Pincers. The enormous purple creature responds by hurling its giant pincers across the battlefield with immense force. The ground shatters from the powerful impact, sending rocks and debris flying in all directions. As the dust begins to settle, ethereal green flames begin to swirl and gather in the air. The spectral fire surges forward and engulfs the monster, causing it to roar amidst the scorching heat. The young man declares that the beast will now feel the power of his enhanced flames, which deal continuous damage. With a confident smile, he commands his otherworldly fire to relentlessly attack the trapped creature. Meanwhile, his other summoned minions have managed to wrap the giant insect in thick, binding ropes. The monster lets out a furious scream, thrashing wildly as it struggles to free itself from the ropes. Taking advantage of the gap, the wolf warrior leaps high into the air, ready to deliver a crushing blow. His hammer finds its target, and this time, a notification confirms that the double damage effect has been activated. The system announces that a critical hit has successfully activated the powerful double damage bonus. The boss recoils from the devastating blow, and the very ground beneath him cracks under the immense pressure. Another massive explosion rocks the battlefield as the wolf warrior's attack hits home with full force. The hero is thrown back by the blast, only to find a smaller scorpion appearing right behind him for a surprise attack. He realizes that there is no opening in the carapace, so he decides to take a different approach, his hand glowing with power. A notification appears, informing him that his title as a Slayer Hunter has increased his attack, double damage, and magic by 10%. With renewed determination, he vows to tear the creature's entire body apart and turn it into a pile of brittle husks. He warns the monster to prepare for its destruction as he unleashes a powerful blast of dark energy from above. The attack hits the creature squarely, causing its armored body to crack and shatter under immense force. The scorpion lets out a final agonizing scream as the devastating energy tears it apart from within. Its massive body finally crumbles and collapses, sending up a massive cloud of dust and debris. The hero stands firm with his sword, having successfully defeated the formidable beast. The system confirms that he has slain the transformed demonic beast and gained experience points. A status window shows that the creature was a level 10 killer crystal thunder scorpion with several powerful abilities. The monster's ghostly green essence lingers for a moment, revealing its true, fearsome spectral form. Its abilities included a paralyzing thunder strike, a poisonous needle, and a powerful crystal storm attack. As the last remnants of the scorpion fade, the young man watches, reflecting on the hard-fought battle. As one battle ends, another begins, as he faces off against a giant turquoise scorpion with a horde of smaller scorpions closing in. The swarm of purple scorpions descends the canyon wall, rushing to overwhelm the lone hero and his new pet. One of the monsters approaches, its eyes wide, red scorpions glowing menacingly as he prepares to strike. The young man watches them approach, thinking to himself that they have arrived at the perfect time. He sends his newly tamed pet forward, eager to test its strength against the oncoming swarm of monsters. The group of scorpions unleashes its Crystal Storm ability, launching a coordinated electrical attack. The area fills with crackling energy and screams of pain as the chaotic onslaught strikes friend and foe alike. Suddenly, a mysterious white-haired swordsman leaps into the fray, his blade glowing with a faint red light. He cuts through the monsters with swift precision, and a system notification confirms that he is striking their weak points. The swordsman moves like a whirlwind, his blade a blur as he elegantly dispatches several scorpions at once. He targets another creature, his fluid movements allowing him to strike with deadly precision and power. His blade pierces the tough shell of a scorpion, delivering a decisive blow that terminates the creature. After landing, he maintains a ready stance, his eyes already scanning the swarm for his next target. As enemies fall around him, several notifications appear, announcing that he has leveled up. A final message congratulates him on reaching the level, vanquishing the defeated monsters. His player status shows that he is now Lin Yuan, a level-up Soul Reaper with the Dark Summon talent. He comments on how great it feels to level up twice in a row, a wry smile on his face as energy glows around him. In the battle, he obtains several silver-grade items, including a lightning spear, guardian greaves, and a ring of paralysis. He also receives a phantom bracer and believes that selling these weapons could greatly improve his parents' standard of living. The young man stands tall and proud amid the remains of the defeated scorpion monsters. A system notification confirms that all demonic beasts in the area have been successfully eliminated. As a final reward, another message announces that he has obtained a gold-grade skill book specific to his skill. A bright golden light begins to swirl around his hands, materializing the powerful reward. The light solidifies into a strange book with a fleshy eye-like symbol on the cover, which he holds up curiously. The tome contains a gold-grade skill called Curse of Darkness, and its use is restricted to Soul Reapers like himself. He looks at the powerful book, realizing how lucky he is to have found such a rare item. The system then informs him that the skill book is automatically being registered into his memory as the light envelops him. A final notification congratulates him on obtaining a skill exclusive to the Soul Reaper class. The Curse of Darkness skill manifests as a swirling turquoise energy filled with ghostly, screaming skulls. Its effect deals a percentage of a target's HP as damage, or can restore a percentage of the HP of undead allies. The world is filled with horror and supernatural powers, where monstrous beings and glowing eyes hint at unseen dangers. Ling Yuan looks at the glowing energy in his hand and realizes that he can now restore 20% of an undead's health. His expression turns serious as he considers the tactical advantage this new healing ability gives his summons. He approaches his pet giant scorpion, which currently has only 60% of its health remaining. Deciding to test his new ability, he releases a powerful beam of restorative energy towards the creature. The glowing blue energy hits the scorpion, and rings of light. Glowing lights appear around him, indicating a healing effect. A notification confirms that his health points have been restored to 80%, and the creature lets out a powerful roar. With the heating finished, he decides it's time to head to the main city to find his first subordinate. Suddenly, a strange, dark, shadowy entity appears to embrace him from behind, catching him completely off guard. A sudden thought crosses his mind as he processes the strange sensation, wondering what it could be. The scene shifts, shifting from the digital world to a different reality. His mother is beside him at the table, telling Yuan that his father has just hurt his back and needs help. He rushes to help his father, gently guiding him to the couch and telling him to take it easy. His mother scolds her husband for acting recklessly, questioning why he tried to fix the air conditioning himself. Lying on the couch in pain, the man explains that he was just trying to save money where they could. His father dismisses the injury as something minor, saying that he just needs to rest before picking Zhao Tan up from school tomorrow. Lin Yuan stands silently at the door, his expression hardening as he watches his father rest. The next morning arrives, bringing a new day to the city. The sun rises over the bustling cityscape, shining down on the tall buildings. A sudden noise from downstairs wakes his parents, jolting them from their sleep. Peeking out from the bedroom, his tired mother asks Yuan why he is making noise so early. They are shocked to find two workers installing a brand new television in the living room. One of the delivery men confirms that Mr. Lin Yuan has purchased the new items and asks them to confirm the delivery. His father stands there, speechless, wondering aloud if he is dreaming what is happening. The workers continue with the installation, focused on installing the new appliances. Meanwhile, Lin Yuan is in the gym, pushing his body to the limit during an intense workout session. He walks over to a treadmill and asks an employee not to bother with the disturbance. A gym employee asks if he would like the VIP package, which requires paying for a whole year in advance. Without hesitation, he agrees and hands over his bank card to pay for the family membership. He considers selling his unnecessary equipment to pay for the house renovation and the new gym pass. He wants his parents and Xiao Tan to start working out early so they can adapt to the upcoming immortality phase. The gym employee watches him, impressed by his athletic physique and how he doesn't even pant after a long workout. As she takes the payment card, her eyes widen in sudden shock. She realizes that it is a premium VIP card, only given to those with more than 5 million in their bank accounts. During the call, he explains that the money is a prize and tells his parents to rest easy, saying that he will stay with Xiao Tan. The employee holds up the card, thinking that her client is an amazing person for being so young and successful. The scene shifts to Zhushui First Middle School, where the students are excited to go to an internet cafe. Among them, a young blonde girl with a blue bow is walking down the school's stone steps alone. This is Lin Tan, her sister, and she walks with a very serious expression on her face. A nearby classmate happily talks about her brother buying her a cake, making another girl envious. Lin Tan silently wonders if having a brother is really something to be jealous of. She remembers her own brother, who was always absorbed in his games and oblivious to the world around him. With a hardened expression, she walks on, thinking that she doesn't want a brother at all. Another student notices her attitude and confronts her, calling the school beauty arrogant. A group of girls then block her path, insisting that she show them some courtesy since they came to invite her personally. The leader of the group becomes enraged by her defiance. He raises his fist to strike, calling her shameless as she cries out in shock. She stands her ground firmly against the men, warning them that she will call the police if they continue to harass her. Ignoring her threat, the man lunges forward and grabs her face. Lin Tan shouts for him to get his hands off of her. He leans in closer with a lecherous smile, commenting on her smooth skin. She just glares back with a look of pure disgust. Her friends watch nervously from behind, asking who these intimidating men are. Meanwhile, Lin Tan's eyes burn with quiet rage. Now completely surrounded, she confronts her harassers, demanding to know what they want from her. Suddenly, one of them shoves her hard, sending her falling to the ground. Her classmates can only cry out her name in fear. The bully looms over her, yelling that she should feel honored and questioning why she acts so arrogant and aloof. On the ground, she quickly raises her knee and crosses her arms, bracing herself for the incoming blow. But just as his hand descends, a strong grip suddenly clamps down on his wrist, stopping the attack instantly. Lin Tan looks up from the ground, her eyes wide with shock and confusion at the sudden intervention. Her brother, Lin Yuan, holds the man's arm tightly, his own eyes glowing as he asks who allowed them to bully his sister. With a faint scratch on her cheek, she stares up at her savior, whispering his name in utter disbelief. Lin Yuan glares down at the group of thugs, his face shadowed, and his expression filled with cold, simmering fury. The bully struggles against the powerful grip, angrily demanding to know who this meddling person is. The thugs swarm him, asking if he is looking for death. The leader vows to knock out his teeth and orders his men to break his arms. Lin Yuan moves with blinding speed, landing a powerful punch to one man's face, sending blood flying from the impact. As another attacker leaps in with a high kick, he calmly watches the attack descend, completely unfazed by the threat. He easily sidesteps the kick and counters with a swift punch to the man's gut, the force of the blow creating visible shockwaves. With the main bully on the ground, he stomps down hard on his face, crushing him under his foot with brutal force. Lin Yuan stands tall amidst the destruction, his power causing the ground beneath him to crack and shatter. He plants his foot on the defeated bully's chest, looking down at him as the other students stare in stunned silence. With the fight over, he turns to leave, telling his sister they should go. The girls are left speechless by what they just saw. As they walk, she asks why he came to get her. She silently wonders about it, since he usually just plays games all day. He explains that their father hurt his back, and their mother is at home taking care of him, which surprises his sister. She asks worriedly if the injury is serious. He reassures her that it is not a big problem and she shouldn't worry. They continue to walk together, but an awkward silence hangs between them, neither knowing what to say next. She realizes it has been a very long time since they last talked like this, and the whole situation feels strange to her. Lin Yuan continues walking with his hands in his pockets, his gaze fixed forward with a determined expression. Just then, her friends call out her name from behind, running to catch up with her and her mysterious brother. Her friends gush over him, saying how nice he is to pick her up. Another asks why she never mentioned having such a strong and handsome brother. She glances at her brother with a skeptical look, silently questioning her friend's compliments about his appearance. Meanwhile, other girls at the school notice him too. They whisper about how handsome he is, thinking he must be a graduate visiting the school. As he continues to walk, more female students turn their heads to look at him, surprised by his sudden popularity. One of the girls bravely greets him, and he politely responds. His sister silently notes that she never realized how tall he was before. She then wonders when he started working out. Realizing his new muscles explain how he was able to fight off those thugs so easily. She remembers him as the same person who would always stand alone in a crowd, hooded and absorbed in his phone. She also recalls countless times he was just a gamer, sitting alone in his room, completely focused on the virtual world. Looking at him now, she can't help but wonder why he seems to have changed so much all of a sudden. Students say their goodbyes after class. A blonde girl waves cheerfully, telling everyone she will see them tomorrow, but her happy expression fades as she looks back with a hint of confusion, wondering what is happening. A young man with dark hair then crouches down, offering to carry her. Other students watch, whispering in admiration. The girl gets flustered, politely insisting she can walk by herself. She feels embarrassed by his sudden offer. Before she can react further, she is suddenly pulled forward, her expression turning to one of complete surprise. Without waiting for her permission, the youth lifts her onto his back and starts walking, ignoring her protests. He calmly explains that everyone else has left, advising her not to push herself if she is having trouble walking. The young man then points to her scraped ankle, reminding her that she was pushed and twisted it earlier. Stunned by his observation, she looks at him, wondering how he could have possibly noticed her injury. The young man arrives carrying his sister, announcing their return to their visibly surprised parents. The older couple exchanges a silent, bewildered glance, unsure of what to make of the situation. Trying to ease the tension, their father simply states that the important thing is that they are both back home. Later, after the family has settled, the young man stands at the kitchen sink washing the dishes. Meanwhile, the mother remarks to her daughter, Tan Tan, that her brother seems like a completely different person now. Their father agrees, adding that his son now cooks and even buys new appliances for the house. The mother also mentions that their relationship as siblings has really improved, like it was in childhood. Sipping her drink, the girl quietly thinks to herself that he is strange, but wonders if he has truly changed. Having finished his task, the youth turns from the sink, announcing that he has arranged everything. Having finished his chores, the young man adjusts his hoodie, announcing that he is going back to his room. Nearby, his sister holds a warm drink, her expression shifting as she hears his words from just outside the door. She thinks to herself, disappointed that he is still just a reclusive young man addicted to video games. Her thoughts are suddenly interrupted when he holds a bottle out to her, his gesture catching her by surprise. The youth tells her to put the contents on after her shower, explaining that its therapeutic effect is excellent. He then says he is going to play games and warns her not to enter his room unless it is for something important. As he walks away and closes the door, the girl is left alone in the living room, clutching the bottle tightly. She sits down, whispering to herself that no one wanted to enter his room anyway, a slight smile on her face. With her gaze fixed on the bottle, her smile widens slightly, hinting at her complex feelings. His mother notes their improved relationship but asks about school. His sister says nothing happened before heading for a shower, leaving him standing there. Later, the young man relaxes in his gaming chair, leaning back as he gets comfortable in his room. With a slight smile, he looks forward with determination. His mind already focused on his next task, he puts on his VR helmet, deciding it is time to get back to the game. His consciousness enters the game, landing with a powerful impact in the main district of Winsands. Now appearing as a hooded figure, he resolves to find and capture the person he refers to as a rat. His avatar surveys the desert city from above, as a system message confirms he has entered the Winsands area. Down below, a man lies on the ground, desperately pleading with an officer that there has been a misunderstanding. But a city guard pins him down with a spear, silencing his lies and ordering him to prison. From the shadows, the hooded figure watches as a city guard pins a struggling man to the ground. His eyes narrow, a flicker of surprise crossing his face as he takes in the scene before him. The city guard pauses, looking around and wondering if what he sensed was just an illusion. As the guard leads the prisoner away, the youth remains hidden, watching them disappear down the hall. He knows the patrol soldiers are sharp and that he must lie low for 3 more days until his sin level drops. But this also presents an opportunity to go and get something from an old friend he has not seen in a while. With his resolve set, the cloaked figure stands tall, his gaze fixed on the path ahead in the city. Later, a man in ornate robes scoffs, mocking the youth for being a low-level mage weaker than the patrols. Suddenly, a man gasps in pain, clutching his chest as a dark substance spills from his mouth. The hooded figure explains that the poison ravaging the man's body is already destroying his organs. He continues, warning that without his treatment, the man will not survive for more than a month. The afflicted man shouts that the cure requires rotted gillfish fat from the deadly muddy clay desert. A system notification then appears, offering a gold-level quest to retrieve the fat and heal the man. With a confident smile, the young adventurer accepts the dangerous mission without a second thought. His journey takes him to the muddy clay desert, a grim place where a skull hints at the dangers ahead. From the murky water, a scaly creature with menacing red eyes emerges, watching its surroundings carefully. The desert is teeming with these fish-like monsters, slithering across the muddy ground in search of prey. Suddenly, a level 15 elite rotted gillfish leaps out, its massive jaws lunging at the surprised adventurer. A female leader warns her party about the monster's sharp teeth, shouting for them to hold on as they dive into battle. But their assault falters as 2 of her companions are swatted away, one crying out that his back is broken. A powerful tail swipe from a rotted gillfish whips through the air, knocking the adventurers off balance. The warrior leader screams as the powerful wave of force slams into her, sending her flying backward. Her group lands in a muddy pit, surrounded by the fish creatures as they desperately call for help. At that moment, a system window appears, announcing the activation of a skill called Tail Wave Leap. An enormous elite fish monster lunges from the mud, its massive maw wide open as it roars at the warriors. But the hooded figure stands his ground, raising his sword with a determined look, ready to face the creature. The monster's gaping mouth closes in, its sharp teeth poised to clamp down on the young adventurer. The blonde warrior from the other party watches in horror, thinking the adventurer is dead for sure. But the hooded figure moves in a flash, his eyes glowing red as he evades the monster's attack. He reappears beside the stunned warrior, grabbing him roughly by the collar and pulling him back. The adventurer shoves the man aside, telling him not to get in the way as his hood falls back. With a confident smirk, his eyes now glow with green energy as he prepares to counterattack. He unleashes a powerful wave of magic from his hand, sending it swirling toward the elite creature. The rotted gillfish has no time to react, its eye widening in shock as the energy closes in. The attack slams into the monster's head with incredible force, erupting in a blast of green light. Landing gracefully on the ground, the young man simply scoffs as the residual energy fades away. The blonde warrior looks completely bewildered, his mind struggling to process what just happened. Kneeling in the mud, he touches his neck, asking himself in disbelief if he actually survived the attack, but his relief quickly turns to shock as he looks up, a sudden realization dawning on him. He wonders about the great hero who had just saved him, now seeing the figure floating in the air. The hooded adventurer hovers confidently, surrounded by swirling green magic as he prepares his next move. He then unleashes a powerful torrent of energy, sending it crashing down upon the monsters in the mud below. The green tendrils strike the smaller fish creatures, inflicting damage and throwing them into chaos. Even the massive elite monster lets out a pained roar as the magical assault hits it directly. The creature's body thrashes violently in the mud, unable to escape the devastating attack. The remaining fish monsters turn their attention to the lone adventurer, screeching as they prepare to swarm him. Watching from a distance, the blonde warrior desperately screams a warning for the great hero to be careful. In a flash, two of the scaly creatures lunge forward, their red eyes fixed on their target as they close the distance. Unfazed by the oncoming attack, the hooded youth scoffs, wondering if this is the best they can do. He lands deftly on the elite monster's back, stabilizing himself with one hand as he prepares to strike. Planting his foot firmly on the creature's tough hide, he uses its body as a stable platform for his attack. His hand tightens around the hilt of a massive sword, which materializes with a glow of system energy. With red eyes and a cold expression, he declares that scum will always be scum, no matter how many there are. He unleashes a powerful strike, the sword's energy slamming into the monsters' heads and stopping their advance. The powerful swing connects, slamming into the fish monsters with a brilliant flash of energy and stopping their charge dead in its tracks. The blonde warrior watches in disbelief, amazed that this hero is handling the monsters his party of 8 could not. But before anyone can celebrate, the muddy ground beneath them begins to churn and bubble ominously. Suddenly, the warrior's face fills with horror as he remembers the most dreadful thing about these creatures is their group attack skill. As if on cue, the remaining moldfish let out a unified roar, their bodies crackling with a strange, coordinated energy. Still standing atop the elite monster, the hooded adventurer faces the swarm as a green aura envelops the area. His red eyes narrow with focus, sensing the incoming magical assault, but he remains completely unfazed. A powerful vortex of dark green energy erupts from the ground, swirling violently around the lone hero. A system message confirms the monsters are casting a group skill that creates a toxic fog, causing confusion and hallucinations. The hooded hero dismisses the attack as a trivial trick, holding a glowing card as he vows not to fall for it again in this life. He then calls for a giant wolf to rise, summoning a massive spectral beast from the swirling green energy. Standing on the monster, he commands his new summon to use its skill, the Howl of the Hungry Wolf. The spectral wolf lets out a powerful howl, and a system message confirms the skill has hit, leaving the moldfish dazed. With the monsters stunned, the adventurer prepares his next move, covering his face as digital code swirls around him. A system window then reveals the item he has equipped, a one-time use awakening mask that defends against toxic fog. Now protected from the fog, he leaps into the air, swinging his sword in a wide, powerful arc toward the creatures below. His red eyes glow menacingly from behind the newly equipped mask, his expression cold and determined, as he closes in. Meanwhile, his summoned wolf also joins the attack, sinking its powerful jaws into one of the stunned monsters. Surrounded by green energy, he dives down with his sword, telling the creatures to meet their death. His blade plunges deep into a monster's head, and a system message confirms he has struck a vital point. In a blur of motion, he slices cleanly through another fish creature, continuing his relentless assault. The masked adventurer swings again, with deadly precision, as a notification confirms another successful vital point hit. Landing on a dazed monster, he stabs downward from above, piercing its head without hesitation. The massive elite fish lets out a pained roar, thrashing wildly as it too is struck by a critical hit. Wounded and desperate, the giant creature tries to escape by burrowing into the mud, but the hero remains on its back. He dismisses its attempt as too slow, while materializing a glowing axe, ready to end the fight. Raising the new weapon high, he declares that the scum will rot forever as he prepares the final strike. The glowing axe crashes down, unleashing a massive explosion of green energy that obliterates the monster in a final deafening roar.